Growing up in a small town in Kansas, Bob Anderson had dreams and aspirations unlike the average 17-year-old. Bob wanted his life to be consumed with the sport he loved, running. Without the imagination and ambition of this high school senior, Runner's World magazine would never have been created.
Started with $100 that I collected from babysitting and mowing lawns.
Runner's World made it all right to not be a world-class runner entering a race. It kind of opened the whole sport to the average walking around guy and gal.
I think the early days of running, Distance Running News and then Runner's World were hugely important. They were very vital to it because you need a voice.
Bob came to me in early December and told me about a challenge that he set for himself to celebrate his 50th year of running, which was during the year of 2012, which was to run 50 races, 350 total miles, and average under a 7 pace. And it sort of blew me away. But when I stopped and thought about it, if I were going to pick a guy who's 64 years old, who had run for 50 years to do this, Bob would be the guy I'd pick. He's just tough.
Burgertown is a really important place for my son Mike and I. We call this the clubhouse. And it was right here at this exact table in December of 2011 that finalized the plan for the 50 race challenge. We come here after a long run and we treat ourselves to one of the greatest burgers that we feel around. It's our clubhouse.
If Bob was doing this at 30 years old, he'd have to run 5:30 pace or under for 50 races, 350 miles.
I think that's phenomenal. To be able to do 50 races, 64 years of age, 50 races in a year, your average time sub 7 minutes per mile, that's phenomenal.
You know, you can run a certain distance every week, but to actually race, to actually put your body through that is really special, especially at any age. But actually in your 60s is really extraordinary.
When we get older, one of the things that does slow down, we don't necessarily slow down as runners as much as some people would think, but where we do slow down is in our recovery. And to be able to recover from week to week while doing this is a major feat as far as I'm concerned.
I see it as all good, Bob. There's very little negative to running.
I mean, I think that goal that you've set yourself, the 50 races in a year, 350 miles, under 7-minute miling is amazing when you think about it. And to have got to the stage you're at already through it, and to be on sort of on pace or on goal for that, it's just inspirational.
You look terrific, and that pace, when I read about the challenge, I thought, that's definitely a daunting challenge for someone. And then when I saw that final caveat, sub 7 minutes, I thought, oh, I gotta, meet this guy. And I mean, I was so inspired by the whole package of what you're doing. Yeah.
What's he at 27 now? What's he at 30? Has he done 40 miles? It forces you to think about where he is. But you know that if he gets injured, when he gets injured, how he recovers from those injuries.
A challenge like that at 64 years old, to run all those races and try to get under a 7-minute pace is an awesome undertaking. It's a good thing. I think every runner should know about this and pick the same kind of a goal.
There's a kindred spirit, and I think you personify that kindred spirit among all runners, whether young, old, performance, or recreation oriented. I think this will be your sense of history, your appreciation for history, your challenge in the documentary, and through the promotion of the projects, I think is a huge give back to the sport.
Received a phone call from the emergency room doctor up at El Camino Hospital, and he told me that he had a patient that he was taking care of who had had a significant injury while running. His entire right eyebrow was essentially just destroyed. It was shredded, and I could see on him what I saw in the CT scan, which was that there was just tremendous amount of debris, rocks, dirt, small twigs in his soft tissue over the right eyebrow.
Yeah, when it comes to my dad being injured, a concern that, that I've had is it doesn't stop him.
So it was right up through here on the run that I met up with Alex, and we were talking right through here, and I was feeling really good. I mean, everything was just perfect. And it was right up here where it happened.
It was pretty traumatic, though. I don't do well with blood. That was more than I could deal with. It was all over his face, on his head. I could see his knees, because he never wears long pants on a run, no matter what time of year it is.
It's kind of spooky even just to be coming through here. This is the first time I've come through here since it happened.
What's really cool, and I hope it's really inspiring to, sorry. What's really special about my dad is he inspires other people, and so he sets these really high goals, and most people think, wow, that's crazy, and sometimes it is a little bit crazy.
Bob starts a challenge, he sticks to it, he's going to plunge right through, and he's determined to complete his goal.
Freak accidents happen. You pick yourself up, you get yourself stitched back together,
and just keep going.
Bob was still feeling some of the ill effects from the fall he had taken only 11 days prior. But that wouldn't stop him from completing the first race of his challenge. Despite not being able to fully bend his knee, Bob was able to cross the finish line in just over 22 minutes.
I first started running when I was in junior high school, and there was going to be a field day at Broadmoor Junior High back in Kansas. And there was, I think, a 600-yard race, and I decided to run it. And actually, I ran, fairly well, and I can remember thinking at that time that, wow, this is something that I could do. And that was back in 1962, and I've been running now for 50 years.
When I first met Bob, it was in the spring before he was on our cross-country team, and I watched him beat another runner that was already on our team in a half mile at a Junior Olympics, and I realized then that Bob had great potential.
43, 5 seconds fast.
What Coach McGuire really did for me, he planted the seed that you can do anything you want to do. May it be 48 quarters, repeat miles, go out and run 15 miles to a different city and back. He convinced us that anything was possible.
Bob has mentioned many times over the years that the tough workouts we did on the Shawnee Mission West team, especially the 48 quarters, have benefited him ever since.
And I can remember a line that Coach McGuire always would say, don't feel sorry for yourself. Meaning that, hey, here it is, we're 36 quarters in, hang in there tough, don't feel sorry for yourself, make it happen. And sure enough, we made it happen.
All right, Bob, woo!
We're down to the wire here, guys.
You're great. You're doing great.
You're doing good, bud. You got time. You can warm up.
They're not gonna.
Okay, you guys got the car? Okay. Race number 3.
He's doing 50 races in 2012. It's Bob Anderson. Where are you, Bob? Come over here. Come over here. On your mark. Go!
By race 3, the knee had healed and Bob was finally injury-free, or so he thought. With a quarter of a mile to go, Bob's hamstring tightened so badly it almost forced him to stop.
God damn it. Got me. Put this on my leg. I'm so pissed off.
This kind of challenge, 50 race challenge that Bob Anderson is doing, has a tremendous effect on the brain and on one's mental health.
Well, I think for Bob to do a race every weekend at age 64, it's difficult. It's hard just for a younger, healthier person
to race every weekend.
When you're doing a long endurance event like this, you can get down, easily get depressed, you can feel fatigued, you can feel like, oh, I can't possibly finish.
Typically it takes one day for every mile of racing to recover. So if he's running a 10K, it takes him 6 days to recover, and so he'll just be recovering, and then he'll be having to race or challenge his body again. So I think it's pretty hard no matter what age you're at, but for Bob particularly, it's going to be hard.
After the race on Sunday, my hamstring was bothering me, and so I've been dealing with that all week, and had a sports massage on Monday. I generally don't wrap my leg like this, but I wanted to add some support. It feels a little bit better. Yesterday I was able to run a couple of miles, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to test it. And even though tomorrow I need to race at 7:15 pace, I'm going to see if I can come down at least in the low 8s. All week long I've been running over 9 minutes a mile. So what I'm thinking about right here is, even with the 5K, you know, there's a point where you push your body and you go past that point. And if you go past that point, it's not just a 1 week problem. It could be multiple weeks.
Still not sure about this hamstring.
The hamstring doesn't hold out. That could be a real problem.
It was just too risky to race 10 miles. Bob's hamstring issue was not improving much. He had to make a tough decision: run the 10-miler or switch to the 5K. If he switched, Bob would have to make up the mileage at another race, since his challenge was not only running 50 races, but he had to cover at least 350 miles.
4 out of 50. A lot of drama leading up to this one, but I got through it. I think everything I did all week worked.
I had no idea what
just last weekend, I limped across the line, and today I ran across the line. So I'm very pleased.
I can remember in October of 1965, and we were going to a cross-country meet in Wichita. And I can remember on the bus there.
He said, I think what people need is a magazine, or a little publication that has more about training and coaches' ideas and talking to the training possibilities, that type of thing.
And Dave said, you're going to start a magazine. What do you know about publishing a magazine? I said, really nothing.
So here we are, seniors in high school, no money. And here we're thinking about starting a magazine. Bob's thinking about starting a magazine, and I'm kind of his coach going, yeah, great idea. I'm right there with you.
And so sure enough that by January of '66, the first issue of Distance Running News came out, and we had a subscription rate of $1 per year. Let me just tell you a little bit what I do before a race. I like to, first of all, get up at least 2 hours before the start of the race. I always like to have a cup of decaf coffee. Then I make sure I obviously use the facilities, and that's really important. The other thing that I also like to do is I like to eat a half a banana. You know, not a full banana, but a half of banana. And then I do about a mile warm-up, and then I make some adjustments. May it be with my shoes, singlet, what I'm going to wear in the race. I think I'm feeling good. I think I'm feeling good.
Well, this is the course here, huh?
Yep, this is going to be the course.
Oh, it's a new course, huh?
But you know what to do with it.
Are these your running shoes?
So this is what I'm going to race in. And you're going to race in your new shoes, huh, Duke?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's get this on. Let's get you numbered. Okay.
Thank you.
And then before you start the race, you take off your jacket. So you're just going to wear...
But Mom, I don't have a jacket.
Well, I know, but you run faster without the jacket.
And she not.
Just to make sure. Okay? Again, stand up, dude. Stand up. Okay, now let's go warm up.
In Bob Anderson's world, running can and should be a family affair. Certainly, that's what it is in his family.
Oh my gosh, Carly, fantastic.
Everyone in his family runs, including his grandkids, Owen, Carly, and Jackson.
Here's Owen. Owen.
Hey guys, come on, over here. Go right for the... Right there.
Good job, man. I'm proud of you. How did it feel? Yeah? Man, you were flying, bud. Good job.
Right now I'm looking around. I'm not seeing anybody that's going to challenge me at my age group, 60 plus. So I'm ready to run. Let's go.
In Mexico, Jose Peña had a drinking problem and was a member of a gang. Then he and his family moved to San Jose, California, and he took up running. This changed his life and that of his family forever. He developed his own unique training program that worked, and in addition to becoming a fine runner himself, Jose now coaches his two sons, Jose Jr. and Omar, who are outstanding runners.
When we go running, or a day before a race or a week before, he fills each one, and we have to finish one.
You have to finish the whole. Oh.
Yeah, sometimes I take it to school when I have like cross country races. This gives the energy.
He thinks it's possible for someone to change because he was a gang member before, and they could go out and do a sport, but when they get to their houses, their family could be like a mess. They could be gang members, and that's not really going to help. So also they have to start with their family and then go out and do sports. And sports will get your mind off anything, any worries, any stress. And it is possible, as long as also how much they want it.
I'm the third of 5 Anderson boys. Billy, Bobby, Barry, Buddy, and Benny, and I'm Barry.
This is the house that in 1962 I was living in, where I started running.
We were a pretty active group of kids.
Meet Pant.
I remember Bob and I, we were fairly close together at that point, that we loved baseball. It was really one of our first sports. But that soon changed to running, and we all ran.
We'd make up these trails through the woods and through these great big 12-foot culverts underneath freeways, and we'd have little routes and we'd time ourselves, and Bob was always kind of keeping records of how we were doing and our time.
You know, one other thing I remember is that Bob actually became the ringleader and the quote coach by coming up with all these goofy things that we did involving running or track type events. Then he came up with the Anderson Decathlon, and it was 10 events, not the 10 events that you would normally think of as a decathlon, but things like the 5-mile race walk around the track at the local high school, or the standing triple jump, which we probably have the world records in that, since nobody else has ever done that. These are the types of things Bob did, and he really took it to a different level, and I think maybe this is where some of his ideas about recording events and writing things, because he came up with scoring tables for these events. I'd really like to know if anybody else has a scoring table for the standing triple jump.
Bob's challenge is tough enough as it is, Making sure your body and mind is in peak performance week to week can be a strenuous task. Now factor in that Bob is the CEO and chief photographer for Eugene Swimwear and takes hundreds of thousands of images during the course of a year. He directs photo tours that also include a 10K and 5K race. Being on your feet for hours before a race is not the best strategy for running a fast time. There's a stigma about running that says you have to be at the peak of your ability and age to be a good runner. Marietta Boitano and Hans Schmidt see it much differently.
My name is Marietta Blanchard. I used to be Boitano, and I'm from San Francisco, California.
Hi, my name is Hans Schmidt. I'm originally from Germany, came to California in 1965. And only started running when I was about 63 years old.
I first started running at the age of 4.5, and I remember running in Golden Gate Park with my family. My dad was a runner and decided that we didn't see him very much. He was always out running and decided to go and start running with him.
And we had a trade convention in Chicago. They put on, as part of the convention, a fun run along Lake Michigan. And said, fun run, sounds like fun, let's try it. So I decided to join, and it was beautiful along the lake, and I found out I could keep up with these guys, and that's basically what started to get me running now.
My first race ever was the Dipsy, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Dipsy, but the Dipsy is just a horrendous race. It's fun as heck, but it's almost nearly a 7.5 mile. The first 4 miles are uphill, and there's 671 stairs, and I just remember running as a 5-year-old. I loved it as my first race, and I wanted to be more challenged by all the different races that I ran, and so that's one of the best things I remember as a kid.
Marietta was the overall winner of the famed Dipsy race when she was only 10 years old. In 2012, Hans Schmidt was the overall winner of the Dipsy at the age of 72. These runners have proved that there is no age limit when it comes to running.
The first issue of Distance Running News really came together quite well, and it was really kind of a joint effort.
Gosh, this is a homegrown thing with Bob's idea behind it. We had my mom and my aunt, my sister, and had a production line on stapling these things together and mailing them out.
They were flat sheets, 8.5 by 11. We hollowed out a groove in a Sears and Roebuck catalog, which were pretty thick at that time.
But we had the single sheets of paper. We got 1,000 copies printed. We assembled them together.
After you got them all put together, you'd lay it down over that groove, flattened out a regular old desk stapler, punched 2 staples in it, turned it over, and with our fingers we'd bend it down. After a while you'd have to use a butter knife or something because the fingers would start to hurt. That was Distance Running News. That was volume 1 of Distance Running News, and the rest, as they say, is history.
When we came into Fort Bragg yesterday, it was pouring down rain, and it was windy, you know, I was really thinking, oh my gosh, you know, another part of the challenge. But as you can see this morning, it's fantastic. The conditions here look good. I'm about 85% from a flu cold standpoint, which is not fabulous, but I'm just going to see what I can do, but it's a good course, and I'm really looking forward to race number 13 here in Fort Bragg.
Okay, runners ready? On your mark, get set, go.
We're on the home stretch.
This is Bob Anderson, 64 years old, who is making this 350-mile journey this year. Congratulations, Bob. Nice finish.
It was good. I could tell I hadn't run all week, that's for sure, but it's a great course and great weather, and I did it. So my goal was 21:30, so I broke that, so I'm happy with that. Fantastic.
Boston is my favorite marathon. Of course, you know, you think because I won it, I was lucky in a way because I opened a running store on the Boston Marathon course.
If you look at the shoes, you'll see how those eyelets came together because the body of the shoe was so big.
Oh yeah, totally.
And Bill had to stop and tie his shoes, and you'll see the photo in the newspaper there, kneeling down, tying the shoelaces up.
There we go.
He ran 2:09 and had to tie his shoes.
Yeah.
It helped me to win the race. I learned the course. And that's true, it's just like cross country. When you know your course, you can be mentally, it's easier for you. But I was very lucky because in college I met Amby Bertha, former Runner's World staffer for many years, great writer, terrific runner, one of our top marathoners. He taught me about marathoning when we were roommates at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. So I had some really good teammates. I couldn't run with them when I was at Wesleyan. You know, they were a notch. They were further ahead of me. I didn't understand the marathon, but I understood the training that he did. I watched him. It was like by osmosis. So when I moved to Boston, I had quit running because I was no longer part of a team. And for me, running is all about running with your teammates, your friends. That's what running is. And its ultimate bottom line, because we all support each other. And it took me a couple of years, but I think once you are a runner, just like that book, Once a Runner by John Parker, you never want to let it go. Sometimes you do, but you always want to come back to it. And I did, you know, and so I aimed for my first marathon, which was Boston. I had a terrible race, it was hot, and I dropped out. But I came back to it, and second year I moved up to 14th. My third year I won it. And that changed my life, and immediately I got invitations to other marathons around the world. The running boom had kicked off. So we all kind of were like riding the wave.
Mine tastes great too. It takes just 5 minutes.
My sausage is Swift Premium Brown and Serve.
Swift Premium Brown and Serve sausage.
Great taste.
Without the wait.
You know, we were riding that marathon wave, that fitness wave that was happening in America. It's still going on.
College was coming, and I went to Kansas State, and Dave went to Missouri.
And then the distance between Missouri and K-State was just too much. Bob really got into a lot more, and there was a point that I remember Bob and I talking, do we want to just quit school and do this? And I thought, yeah, pretty neat, but I didn't do that.
So I moved to Manhattan, Kansas. I found a printer in town, Egg Press, and I started working there and doing something that was very valuable to the whole creation of the magazine. I started doing layout. And I told Dean Kokenauer, who was the owner of Egg Press, that what I was doing and all that. And I said, maybe you might be interested in printing the magazine. And he said, sure. It was this type of press right here where the very first issue of Distance Running News was printed.
This is a similar sheet when he was last printing in Manhattan.
It was just so fantastic that Dean was, not only gave us a great price for the printing, but also allowed me to come into this facility and lay out the magazine, and after hours. And that was really a big break for me, the magazine, and I think running in general.
Paula Radcliffe's women's world record in the marathon is outrageously fast. 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 25 seconds. No other woman has run under 2:18. Paula has done it 3 times. Paula has also won the New York Marathon and London Marathon 3 times each, a feat no other woman has been able to accomplish or even come close to.
There's just something about running that is just now just part of me, and just something that I love doing. It just makes me feel good, and I guess that's kind of what it comes back to all the time. And people say, "Oh, how do you get back from the disappointments that you've had in your career?" And it's pretty much because running's also what heals me and what makes me feel better. And I like to get out and just have time by myself, or I like to go out and run with friends. I like to think about things. If I'm happy, I want to go for a run, and if I'm sad, I think I'll go for a run. It'll cheer me up. So there's just so many things. When I was at school and I was like struggling with problems and homework and stuff, it was always much easier. And oftentimes halfway through the run, I think, oh, well, that's the answer there. Why didn't I think of that earlier? So it just is so much to me, and I hope that it's always going to be able to be a big part of my life.
From March 25th to April 7th, Bob ran the Oakland Half Marathon and 2 5K races. The Carlsbad 5K, a race he's now run 19 years in a row, and a 5K in Fairfield, California.
1967 was the year I ran Boston, and it also was the year that I started to play a role with Distance Running News.
I needed someone that could really express their feelings on paper.
And I more than happily did it. I was working at Track and Field News then, but Track and Field News didn't cover anything longer than the track events. And so this was an opportunity. I wasn't doing something in competition with my job.
On the trip to California to talk to Joe Henderson, one person I also met was Bert Nelson, who was the publisher of Track and Field News. Besides the fact that it was so exciting to meet Bert, I asked him, I said, you know, is it possible that I could rent your mailing list? He had about 10,000 subscribers. I came back on the plane with 10,000 labels, names and addresses of people that would be most likely interested in a magazine about running. That was huge.
We heard that there's tornado warnings, and the race is on Saturday, Rock the Parkway, so hopefully it's not going to really rock the Parkway. But all set for a good half marathon. I'm feeling pretty good, and let's hope the tornadoes are not going to get in the way here. Here we go, Kansas City. Looked out the window, like very little wind, no rain. It looks like that we might get a little bit of rain at 10 o'clock, but that's after the race is over. So it doesn't rain a lot today.
To the famous red jersey.
There we go. Always red. So for some people, red means stop. To me, it means go. Goes fast. Go fast.
What's our number today?
Okay, they gave me number 80. So I'll take it.
Welcome to Rock the Parkway, Kansas City.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Bob's love for running is firmly rooted in the Kansas soil. So coming back home to run a race during his challenge was very special to him.
Bob Anderson, Samuel Kemper, Paul Montel, Pat Merrigan, Valerie Thompson and Bruce Allen, Carolyn
Dead at a mile.
Andy Green.
That was tough. Toughest one yet. Way to go.
Danny Davis, Luther Holloway, Cody Sassick.
How was it? Oh man. Great course. Great weather. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Great race. Where do you think, Bruce?
Back there someplace. Oh man.
Wagner from Greenwood.
So man, dead at a mile. I did okay through about 8. Hey, great course, great weather, great organization. Rock the Parkway, it rocks. It's great. And I just didn't prepare right yesterday. On my feet, too much.
Good job today.
Hey.
It's impossible to overstate the value of running in general and in my life specifically. Probably for me, the mental health component of what running does is maybe the greatest benefit that I have. My mind goes a million miles an hour, and I have this zest for life that I attack things, and sometimes that intensity can be detrimental to myself or to people around me. And so I notice, and everyone around me notices, that when I'm running, my neurology seems to find a nice, comfortable place. But it's really the psychological, the emotional, the mental health component of running that is of great value to me. Bob's hamstring issue was not improving much. He had to make a tough decision. There are a million excuses and a million reasons that can be found to kind of avoid running. But the truth of the matter is that I get more done, I'm more efficient, I'm more awake in every sense of that word when I am habitually on the road running consistently. One of the great experiences of my life, professionally and personally, was acting in The Lord of the Rings. We filmed in New Zealand for 2 years, and it was as physically, emotionally, and in every other way fulfilling and draining an experience as you can imagine. The character that I played, Samwise Gamgee, was written by J.R.R. Tolkien to be a fat hobbit. And I had, in the weeks before auditioning for the movie, run my first full marathon in Los Angeles. And I finished it in a heartbreaking 4 hours and 4 minutes. 4 minutes and so many seconds off of my goal of going sub 4. But I was skinny. So I had to demonstrate that I could get fat. And it was frightening how quickly I was able to put on 40 pounds. So it was really demoralizing, actually, that during one of the most exciting periods of time, I also had to endure one of the most physically uncomfortable periods of my life. And I remember October 28th, 2000 is a very important date in my life because that was a date that there was a big earthquake, and I decided as the earth was rolling up and down that I had done my job, I had been Samwise Gamgee, and now I could, over the last 2 months of filming, start the process of coming back. And that day, that night, 10 o'clock at night, I went and I put on my shoes, and my wife said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going for a run." And she sort of looked at me curiously like, "Are you allowed to do that?" And I said, "Yes, because I've calculated that I can be running now and still satisfy the way I'm supposed to look in the movie." And I went for like an 8-mile run. I mean, from totally sedentary for almost 2 years to an 8-mile run like that. It's just funny that Lord of the Rings was the most important professional work of my life, I'm sure. And yet, excruciating not being able to do my thing, which is running.
The name of my magazine was Distance Running News, and I was just thinking maybe that was going to limit the audience. Maybe, in fact, there ought to be a new name. And I started thinking about it, and I believe it was Out on a Run. So many of the ideas and so many of the things that I've come up with come on runs. And I said, Runner's World. So one of the writers that I was working with was Hal Higdon. And I remember calling up Hal from Manhattan. I said, "Hey Hal, what do you think? I'm thinking about changing the name of my magazine from Distance Running News, and I'm just getting ready to print another edition, and I'm going to be moving to California. What do you think of the name Runner's World?" And like that, he said, I love it. October of '69, he said, you know what? I'm moving to California.
Placed 22nd overall and was the first over 60 finisher out of 1,100 runners in the Avenue of the Giants half marathon on Sunday, May 6th. His time? 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 47 seconds.
So for a few years, lived with my dad, and we were both smokers. I was like, at the time I was like 19, I'd probably been smoking at that time for like 4 or 5 years, chain smoking too, like a pack or 2 a day, just like my dad. And we smoked inside the house.
I think my first drink was in junior high. And there was an event that was at my mom's house, and they had a big, huge event, and every table had wine on it. And I remember they had white and red wine, and I drank, and I actually got sick that night.
And the Iron Man came on the TV, and I watched it. And I remember, I had this flicker where I remembered being a kid and being an athlete, because I ran competitively when I was little, like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And it occurred to me that like these athletes I saw on TV, I was completely incapable of being like them.
So laying in the hospital, hooked up, alcohol poisoning, 4% alcohol in my system, some crazy number. I would have thought that was rock bottom, but no.
And so I joined 24 Hour Fitness, and I started taking runs in the park, and I started with literally a mile. That's the longest distance I could tolerate. And I remember getting up to 2 on the treadmill, and it was the first thing I went to, and I never stopped. I never stopped running. It was like those 7 years of smoking were immediately flanked on both sides of running, with running. It's really weird. They're complete opposites, but I had to go right back once I was done with the cigarettes.
My dad, I'm talking to him on the phone again. He comes over to my house, and I'm passed out with just bottles everywhere. And at that point, he, I don't know how he got me downstairs, but he ended up getting me downstairs, and we decided to get into a running program together, and I stayed with him for 30 days. So instead of going to a traditional rehab center for 30 days, we decided to do the Anderson 30-day running program.
I think I'll run forever, absolutely. So whatever I can do to make it there so I can always have it in my life, I'll definitely do.
Being there with my dad and running with him every day, it just triggered, it channeled such a positive thing in my life, because the endorphins started kicking in, and then I started loving it, and to the point where I feel better. I get higher now running after work than I would ever have gotten drinking after work. I think running could inspire other people, that are alcoholics or addicts. Get out there and run. I mean, as hard as it is to get out the door, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
And the one major thing that pulled Mike out of that situation and has turned him into the most positive guy ever, who runs currently a half marathon every Saturday, who basically, when he can find any ounce of time, will get a run squeezed in. And what's the major common denominator? It's running. It's running. Mike has done this because of running.
Bob ran 3 more races in May, including the wild and crazy 12K Beta Breakers, where he finished 3rd in the over 60 age category. At the end of these races, Bob was averaging 6 minutes and 57 seconds per mile.
To see this magazine that started by 2 17-year-olds, Distance Running News, progress into Runner's World, the world premier magazine, is no one knew that I was a part of this. So I'd see Bob being successful in this magazine. As I'd go into stores and see it, I'm going, Bob's doing good. I was a part of that. It's made me feel good the whole time.
So in 1969, so I was like 22 years old, and Joe Henderson was a couple of years older than me. We had our offices there at 95 Main Street, and it was such an exciting moment for the magazine, an exciting moment for running, because as we would come up with certain ideas, like the 24-hour relay, and the next thing we know, we're doing a relay at Foothill College, and we have, gosh, all of some of these top runners, and then after doing that, we put an article in Runner's World about the relay, and the next thing we know, we have the Olympic team. We have people like Gerry Lindgren running the 24-hour relay, and running unbelievable performances, and just endless top runners started doing things like this, and it all started by Joe and I throwing back and forth ideas at 95 Main Street in Los Altos.
Bob's first working home in the Bay Area was 95 Main Street, Los Altos, California. Los Altos is a little suburb, a fairly prosperous suburb of San Francisco. The office was small, some people would even say tiny. You walked in the front door and you went right into the greeting area, shipping area. There was one person working in there. Behind that entrance area, there's Bob's office. That was the business office. That was the brains of the outfit in many ways. Go to the right was my office. That was it. That was the staff. There were 3 of us.
And sure enough, there wasn't enough room. We outgrew that. We moved into a place twice the size. Moved from 500 feet to 1,000 feet. And it was at Middlefield Road where we put in, we called the high school, hey, we need some help. And Lyman Dixon came by. Lyman Dixon ended up being the vice president of Runner's World, in charge of 150 people. He came to me as a high school student at $1.25 an hour. If I needed something done, Lyman could take care of it. If I needed something done from a writing standpoint, Joe would take care of that. I mean, we were building a team. This is the Fontana Half Marathon. I love the course, actually. A 2,000-foot drop from the starting point. Race is starting in 15 minutes. I put this icy out on my feet. I don't know exactly why. I started a few years ago. A lot of things I do, I don't necessarily do for any other reason than the mental edge that it might give me.
Oh, here. As you get older, you get better and faster. Here's the sun right now. Hang on.
Hello? 126.27.
Bob was now averaging 6:54 per mile after 24 races. After running the 10K in the heat and humidity of Puerto Vallarta, he was exactly halfway through his 50-race challenge and averaging 6:56 per mile overall. Bob's confidence was high, but he also knew that the toughest races of the challenge are still in front of him.
We're here in Boston, home of the Boston Marathon. Just in a few minutes, we're going to be going over to the BAA offices and talking to Jack Fleming all about the Boston Marathon and everything that took place back in the early 60s when it was only just a few hundred runners to now it's a sold-out event in just a couple of days. Hey, Jack.
Bob.
Pleasure.
Thank you. You are a true legend. It really is our organization's honor to have you here. You're a name that everyone associated with running knows about, and for you to be doing what you're doing this year with your objectives and to make time to stop in the middle of the summer to the BAA is fantastic. This is one of our most prized possessions. This is second place from the first marathon in 1897.
Oh my God.
So the holy grail for us would be first place, John J. McDermott's trophy from 1897. We don't have that. We don't know where it is. Maybe it's in someone's attic. Maybe it no longer exists. But maybe somebody knows where it is. Wouldn't it be wonderful if through word of mouth or communication or whomever, someone were to say, hey, wait a second, I know where that thing is.
Oh, that's right. So here we go. Yeah, this is
1971, November 71.
Marty LaCory here.
For the New York Athletic Club, it looks like.
And this is right, Runner's Row.
For you to choose to come here, for you to choose to be running Falmouth as part of the challenge, we recognize your role in the development of the sport, your role in the progression of the sport, your role in inspiring others, and the fact that you conceived this challenge as a way, an active way, of spreading the news to not only commemorate your half century of running, but also to document it in a way is really a give back to the entire sport and to sports in general. I really think that this goes beyond running.
I never ran the marathon.
Okay.
And
there's still time.
But actually, next year when I'm 65,
okay,
after I get done with this challenge, one of the things one thing I want to do is run the Boston.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Can we shake on it?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Falmouth Road Race is celebrating its 40th year this year. I came here in the second year. There were 90 runners the first year. There's about 12,000, 13,000 now. Hey, Bill.
During his trip to Boston, Bob met two people with amazing stories of how running has helped them overcome obstacles that most would back down from.
In May of 2008, I was right at 300 pounds. Actually, I'd been heavier before that. For 5 years, I was over 300 pounds.
Boston means everything to me. It's the best marathon in the world. It's the oldest in the world. And I'm the first male little person to run it, and I will be the first male little person to finish it.
Thinking about how I was going to get in The Biggest Loser, I thought I'd have to gain some more weight. And then all of a sudden, I realized that I'm never going to get in that show. And I was 47 at the time, and I really didn't think I would even make it to 50.
A lot of little people don't run. Sometimes they're told by their doctor it's not a great form of exercise. But I found it to be an amazing thing for me to do. I feel alive when I'm doing it. I'm healthier than I've ever been.
So I came to this kind of an epiphany. The Boston Marathon had just been run the month before. Something my dad ran when I was 7 years old, and now 40 years later, I wanted to run it was a dream of mine to run the Boston Marathon. So I came up with this scheme that I could train for the Boston Marathon and lose 50 pounds, somehow run, walk, or crawl across the finish line, and then hopefully raise a significant amount of money for cystic fibrosis. Well, a week later, my friend Rick came out, and Rick walked the 2.5 miles with me. We were a half mile from the house. He said, "Now I want you to start running." And I looked at him, I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, you're running the Boston Marathon." And I said, "Oh yeah." So I started running. Well, I made it literally 10 yards before I had to stop, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I think Rick thought I was going to have a heart attack too. And I looked at him and tears were coming down my face, and I said, "Rick, what am I going to do? I've told my friends, my wife, my niece Julia, that I'm going to run the Boston Marathon, and I can only run 10 yards.
There isn't such thing as a typical runner's body. There isn't one person that you can identify as being a runner and one who isn't. Anyone can do it, as long as you get out there and get those feet moving. If you're in a wheelchair, get those arms moving and get out there rolling and do whatever you can, because it's all about getting that heart pumping and being alive.
10 months later, I lost 113 pounds. I got down to 163. I'd like to say it was hard, but it really wasn't that hard. I then ran the Boston Marathon nonstop. I like to say that was easy, but it wasn't. It was really hard. But I did it. And when I crossed that finish line, it changed my life. Greater than anyone that's run a marathon knows exactly how I felt. It changed my life.
We weren't just publishing a magazine about running. We were promoting the sport. We started the Fun Run program, where we had 400 sites around the country.
Those were just really exciting times, and as I look back on them now, they're probably more exciting to me now to think back on them than they were at the time.
Running was growing, the races were growing, the New York City Marathon had started up with the success that we were having, and we spent a lot of time getting our magazine on the newsstand. And as we were growing and having success and reaching a lot of people, we also had our first major competitor. George Hurst started the Runner.
Hey, Bob, good to see you again. Long time.
It's been a long time.
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to guess.
I know.
So how are you?
And we were pretty competitive as publishers go.
I think we had a good time doing it and became a great rivalry, and Bob and I were competitors fully because it's serious. If you're going to devote your life to anything, it's important. And we've spent almost no time together over the years, a little bit of correspondence back and forth, but I've always admired what he's done. I mean, it changed running completely. There's no question about it. Of course, Frank and Bill, right. Greta and Fred, when they ran together. This is one of the great photos. Oh, yeah. Rod and Jeff Smith, literally battling to the last couple of steps in the marathon, and Jeff collapsing, and Rod and
quite a moment there.
Yeah.
Let me grab my shoes and I'm ready. 73 degrees. For half marathon standard, 73 is warm. Okay, so we're going to catch a shuttle. It's pretty darn warm already.
But this is going to be probably the hottest 35 years.
Oh, this will be the hottest day.
I think so, yeah.
So, well, this is my race number 33 of the year. So, between the heat and maybe that hill on 6th Street, I've been averaging under 7 minutes.
Race 33 was the San Diego Half Marathon. It was already 73 degrees and humid at 7 a.m. Bob was feeling good early in the race. He hit the 10-mile mark at just over 71 minutes. But things came undone dramatically when he had to climb a long, gradual uphill 11.5 miles into the race. With the temperature now at 80 degrees, he almost had to stop and walk.
Congratulations, Chris. 140, 36.
This would be the most critical moment in the entire 50-race challenge.
First race.
Meredith, Patria, Lee Maxon. Way to go, guys. Alex McFate, Lee Schwartz.
I was under 135.
How about Claire Morgan, Garth Bilodeau, from Encinitas?
So I'll tell you, I'm going to have to rethink things. I was 13 minutes ahead. This wipes away about 9 minutes. God. So tough.
There you go, guys.
Because come thick or thin, I'm gonna hit 350 miles. I'm gonna average under 7 minutes a mile. Come thick or thin. 17 races to go. I have to make a plan.
A make it or break it moment of truth. It took all the willpower he had to keep running. Bob was understandably concerned about the hills in his next race. To prepare for that race, he did some hill training in a park in Salinas, California, with Monica Jo Nicholson.
How are you?
Well, could be better outside.
I heard. Getting onto the ball of your foot and just drive. Feel how much faster you can go when you pump those arms. It's been an honor. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to spend some time with you, show you a couple things. But
and what's this?
Just in closing, I brought you a Mojo bar.
Oh my gosh.
my nickname's Mojo, Monica Jo.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you know, I'm a little sweet and a little salty sometimes. So enjoy your peanut butter pretzel Mojo bar.
You got it.
And let me know how
will.
Kawaii goes. Okay.
You know, I remember reading at the time the only running magazine in the world, Track and Field News. Then I heard about this young kid that was starting a running magazine. Being a runner, we're interested. Where's it going to go? And then I was just shocked that this young kid with $100 starts a running magazine, and then realizing the qualities of the magazine, and then how it just took over. It made such an incredible difference on fitness, muscle strength, range of motion, cardiovascular conditioning, body composition, knowledge of shoes, getting people knowledgeable on what's best for them and the fitness level.
I read everything I could get my hands on because I was getting into the sport. I was learning about it. And I always tell new runners, read everything you can. A lot of beginners don't understand that. They think running is just one foot in front of the other. It is. But if you want to improve, you have to explore the sport. And the more you can learn about how to train, how to do things smart, you'll make progress faster and easier.
Runner's World, all of a sudden everybody had to read Runner's World. We get together in a run and everybody be talking about what they just read in Runner's World.
I first picked up a copy of Runner's World in 1976 and read every page. You know, I got that sent to my home, was excited when it arrived every month.
I always say make it easy on yourself. Remember that song? That's what it's about, you know? So I think Runner's World did that. It tried to express the beauty of the sport, but also how to make it easy on ourselves so we all can find our potential. That's what it was about, you know?
Very few people can say they've made a difference. They've helped make the world a better place. The young man that started that magazine made a difference, made the world a better place. And in so doing, multitudes of people were challenged, and that magazine gave them that opportunity when all the chips were down to find that incredible strength they still have within themselves and to surface and make the world a better place. And in so doing, the magazine challenged by those individuals, multitudes of people across the world, to inspire other people to find the best within themselves when the chips are down. And that's basically the way I felt It was far beyond being a running magazine. It was almost a Bible of how to lead a more quality lifestyle. And I wanted to do a little part. So I nominated that individual to be one of the top 10 young men of America, and was thrilled and honored and humbled when he was chosen.
Each year, the USJCs select 10 males, all under 35 years of age, for their prestigious 10 Outstanding Young Men of America award. Bob Anderson received that award in 1982 for his contribution to American fitness as the publisher of Runner's World.
This is the trophy that I won as one of the 10 Outstanding Young Men of America, and I was honored when Billy Mills nominated me for this, and then receiving it. It was quite an exciting moment of my life.
A great stretch right here.
Oh my.
I can't wait to run this. Wow. Does this look awesome or what?
This is unbelievable. Look at this through here. Look at this. Unbelievable. Oh, shit. Oh my God.
What do we got?
Yeah, we got a.
Oh.
I mean, this is in the last 3 miles for sure. A little bit. Let's see what happens. It comes up. It comes up. Is there a top to it? Is there a top? We're topping out. We're top. Oh, in the ocean. Look at this. Oh my God. And here we are, blasting it down here. Okay, that wasn't that bad. There's only a couple of hills that look pretty bad.
After driving the course, Bob went to the airport to pick up his longtime idol and inspiration, Gerry Lindgren, who now lives in Honolulu.
How you doing? Fantastic. Yeah, good to meet you. Fantastic. Good to have you here, and we'll do a little training run and sit down and talk.
Great.
Fantastic.
I need to interview you too. I need to know, the question I have for you is, how can you start a magazine when you're still in high school?
How can you beat the Russians when you're still in high school? Same thing.
I first got into running because I wanted to be an athlete. I was very stupid in school and thought that the only possibility for me would be maybe I could be an athlete. So I tried out for football and of course got cut from the team the first day. I tried out for basketball and I was way too short and uncoordinated. I tried out for baseball, and the baseball coach walked me over to the track coach because in junior high school nobody ever got cut from the track team. And I ran for maybe 2 weeks on the track team, and I was cut from the track team because I kept falling down. I have a coordination problem with my feet.
And I remember it was July of 1964 that I turned on our little black and white TV set, and sure enough there was Gerry Lindgren running against the Russians, but not just running against the Russians, he beat the Russians. I remember that was just such an inspiring moment.
When I turned out for cross country, I was the slowest kid on the team, and I was consistently last. I couldn't even stay close to anybody else. I hated the running. I wanted to quit. And I guess the day before we'd been running the quarter miles around the track, and the other members of the team didn't like me on the team either because I was such a wimpy kid that every time when the quarter would start, somebody would hit me, kick me, spike me, do anything in order to let me know that I shouldn't be there. So one time I got really frustrated, and when the coach started us, I sprinted out into the lead and just ran as hard as my legs would go for about a third of the way around, and then everybody passed me again and I was in last place, only now I was terribly tired and couldn't stay with anybody. The next day I was going to quit the team, and the coach took me out of my class, and he took me in the hall and he said, "You probably don't realize it, but you have an opportunity that few people ever get." He says, "You could help other runners because you're so wimpy and unlikely that when you do something, everybody else follows because you're wimpy and they don't want to be wimpy." He said, "When I led the team around the track, they ran their quarter mile 20 seconds faster than they'd run any of their other quarters because nobody wanted to be behind the wimpy kid." He says, "When everybody gets in shape, you'll probably never make the varsity or get a letter. But now you could help other people just by being Gerry Lindgren. So that was the start of me. I decided I wasn't going to try to win. I wasn't going to try to do anything. I just wanted to help the other guys to have a good team. That was my start.
In the twilight hours of Sunday, September 2nd, the runners were at the starting line in the Kawaii race. Bob Anderson could not afford another near disaster like the one in San Diego. Bob would finish the Kawaii half marathon in 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 30 seconds. First in the 60 to 64 age group, running the first half up hills in 51:30 and the second half in 45:18.
About
what is that?
3 minutes faster than
Doug Johnston,
last week
Johnston, Illinois.
San Diego.
Okay, and Kelly Marchette of McKaysville, Georgia.
After Kawaii, Bob was back on track. Even though he was now over the 7-minute per mile average pace, he was still optimistic that he could make up the deficit. At least, that was the hope.
The Runner's World shoe issue was probably the most important issue that we did for runners. There is nothing more important than a good pair of running shoes.
By this time, we were ranking shoes. You know, the best shoe to the 25th best shoe. And this caused a lot of discussion and some controversy, but I think it was people who were objective about it realized that Runner's World was putting its name and reputation on the line by doing this, and was risking angering or upsetting at least shoe companies who were the advertisers by doing this. Because in theory there could only be one happy advertiser. And that was the one that had the top rated shoe.
We contacted a fellow Dr. Peter Cavanaugh at Penn State University for him to develop some testing. And then we actually then submitted shoes to them, and they would put it through testing.
Runner's World continued to put out shoe issues, and it became a bigger and bigger part of every year. It became an annual event.
It was estimated that a first place rating was worth an additional $3.5 million of sales just on that one shoe.
Wow, that was great. One lap on the same track where the Olympic trials were just a few months ago. Exciting moment. Great memories here, pre-Eugene, Oregon, Tracktown, USA. It was right here at this spot where ran, where the crowds were in the stands yelling, "Go Pre, go Pre, go Pre." And I can just visualize and just imagine him right here on this track running some unbelievable performances. But wow, it's exciting to be here.
Well, we're at Pre's Rock. It's the memorial to Steve Prefontaine, who died on this spot on Memorial Day of 1975. Came around the corner right there. Unknown what his speed was, but he didn't make the corner. And he went into the rock right here, and a sports car flipped over and was crushed under the car. Today, even 37 years after his death, he's probably the most famous runner in the United States.
There probably has never been a runner that was such a showman. I mean, he electrified the crowd.
It's very emotional to realize that this is where he drew his last breath, and it was a real tragedy for his family, obviously, but for the sport in general, because what was left undone is always a big question mark. He was 21 when he finished 4th in the Olympics.
I mean, it's hard to believe that this, in fact, is the spot where Pre took his last breath. This is a tremendous tribute to Prefontaine, a runner that will never, ever be forgotten. So right at the end, I didn't know him, but I was just struggling just a little bit. And a guy comes up on me and passes me. And this guy looks like he's 60, over 60. I tried to come back at him at the finish. He got me by a second or two. And then I asked him afterwards, 66 years old, ran a great race. I didn't know he was there the whole time. So he must have ran a really good last couple of miles. So, but all in all, I'm very pleased. It was a great course, and 42 seconds or so under 7-minute pace. So I'm glad.
So one time I was giving a talk at an expo, and I spoke to a gentleman and said, "Yeah, this is my 50th marathon." I said, "Wow, you run 50 marathons?" He's like, "In all 50 states. I'm a 50-stater." And I said, "Does something like that exist?" He said, "Yeah, there's a 50-state club." And I said, "How long did it take you to do it?" And he said, "Well, I've been working on it for 8.5 years. And I thought, 8.5 years? I have no way I can take that much time off. And so I got a 50-day leave of absence and figured I got 50 days, I got to bang out a state, in every single day, run a marathon. And that's the genesis of how it came about.
As a post-collegian, I started marathoning, and the goal for me was to make the Olympic trials and put myself on stage with all the best marathoners in the country. And I qualified at Grandma's Marathon running 2:21:30 on a humid day, hot day. So I just barely qualified on this really tough day and picked off a ton of people in the last few miles and just really celebrated, 15 years of running or something like that by qualifying for these Olympic trials. From start to finish, from those team experiences all the way to a marathon individual victories. I've had some pretty fun times running.
At the start of this thing, I thought, one, I don't know if I'll ever be able to pull this off. I mean, let's face it, there's no recovery, not a single day of recovery. And if I do pull it off, I probably will be hobbling through New York City. I mean, if I can just get in there before the official cutoff time, sneak in, I'll be lucky. And I actually ran my fastest of all of the marathons. So I ran 3 hours and 30 seconds. In New York City, which, for New York, that's fairly respectable on fresh legs, let alone, 49 days prior, 49 marathons, yeah.
If I had not found running, sometimes I like to think I'd be a professional soccer player or something, and it would have pushed me into something else incredible. I wouldn't have got into UC Santa Barbara, because the only reason I got into UC Santa Barbara was because I got on the track team. I would have been at a junior college and slowly making my way through life. I wouldn't have got into law school because I became an assistant grad coach at the Santa Clara cross-country team because of my running. So really, I wouldn't be a lawyer right now. I wouldn't have the job I have right now. I wouldn't have the friends I have right now. I wouldn't have the positive outlook I probably have on life of like putting in the work into something and then making it come to fruition. That is like the best question anybody's ever asked me, because I don't know what I'd have if I hadn't started running and taking it and enjoying it so much the last 20 years.
Things were now getting tense. Every second counted. Each race required a concerted effort if Bob was to meet his goal. From October 7th to December 9th, he ran 11 races, which included 3 half marathons, 4 10Ks, and 4 5Ks. The toughest of these races was the Cabo 5K in San Jose del Cabo, Mexico, October 27th, where the temperature was 86 degrees and the humidity 92%. Fortunately, the race was only 5 kilometers long, and he didn't lose much time when he finished it in 21:56.
You know, things were really rolling, 1984, but the one thing that wasn't happening is that, I was spending a lot of time publishing the magazine. I would get, the earlier I got in, I wouldn't get home till 8 o'clock at night. I would come in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would be there until 8 o'clock at night. And quite honestly, I was, not spending enough time with my family.
As much as it was the publishing industry and our whole life was very exciting, and we got to go a lot of great places and meet some amazing people, there was also a lot of stress. So the ups and downs wore on you.
But I really wasn't spending the amount of time that I should be. Runner's World came first. Runner's World became, before anything in my life, unfortunately.
There was so much focus on work that just, lost the importance of family and relationship. That's how I saw it for me.
Got to the point where that my marriage was not working anymore. And so we decided that we needed to part ways. And the one way of parting ways, or actually the only way, was that I needed to sell the magazine. And that was some very difficult moments. It was like basically, selling your baby in a sense. But at the same time, it was mature enough that I knew that Runner's World would be able to make it without me and without many of the people that have assembled around the magazine. And sure enough, it still survives today, and the circulation is bigger than what it was when I sold.
I remember going down to a meeting in Mountain View. At a hotel in Palo Alto, where Bob made the announcement that he was forced to sell the magazine because of things unrelated to the magazine business. And that was our parting, and it was a sad one. And I realized, looking back, that first of all, that Bob had given me a career, which was well established at that point. I did move on with the magazine to its new owner, but in some ways that was the end. In some ways I wish that I had gotten out of the magazine business then.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I tell you. Wow, this is unbelievable. This was going to be race number 46, but I'll tell you, I can't afford to run a really bad race. And look at this weather. Rain, wind, I don't know.
Can you wipe the lens, dude? There's a drop.
See, because if I run this, I have to count it. That's the way I'm doing this deal. But if I cancel it, then I don't have to count it. So what do? So I cancel it. Because see, I'm 29 seconds in total over pace. Over. So I have to make it up. So how in the heck? There's no way today. I would say in this weather, if I ran 7:30, I would be pleased. So in the meantime, that would cost me 2 minutes. I can't afford it. It's a crazy challenge in that respect. So it's not just a matter of finishing, it's a matter of, you know, that element as well, you know. Totally soaked, man. So, no, this just doesn't work today. Well, let's go get some breakfast.
When I got to Tokyo, surprisingly, I was favored to win the gold medal, and I couldn't see it because there were so many great runners, and they beat me indoors, and I wasn't that good.
So Gerry and I just developed this friendship. We really bonded making the Olympic team. And what proved that correct in my mind and really bonded me with Gerry, we had half a mile to go. And I looked back, it's just Gerry and I. And Gerry made another move, and I started celebrating. I was on the Olympic team in my second event, and I let him go. And he beat me 8 seconds or so, and the stadium is applauding Gerry. The stadium's giving him this standing ovation. We continued jogging, he said, "Billy, I had no more moves left. If you made one more move on me, I would not have been able to cover it." And I said, God, I should have gone with him. I should have made another move. I should have tried to win instead of just celebrate. I can't let that happen anymore. I can't let it happen in Tokyo. So Gerry has no idea how much he impacted me. I think it was 4 days before the Olympics. We're on a run with Gerry Lindgren.
Unfortunately, a couple days before the finals in the 10,000 meters, I sprained an ankle running through the woods.
So I looked at his ankle, it's starting to swell a little. I said, "Gerry, we've got to get back to the training camp. We've got to get back and ice it." No, I'm fine. He took off running up a hill and down. And the only way I could get Gerry back, I don't think he knows this to this day, I told him I wasn't feeling well, I was tired. So let's go back. And I did that just to get Gerry back so he could have his ankle looked at.
Billy Mills, who was my roommate, came in when I was icing my foot, and he had his eyes big, and he said, "Gerry, I can win the gold medal. I can win the gold medal." He says, "I can beat all these guys. I didn't think I could beat you, but I can beat all the other guys." And for 2 days, I had to listen to him day and night. He can't even sleep because he's sitting there yelling, "I can win the gold medal. I can win the gold medal." And that's exactly what he did.
I go back to the living quarters. I go into the room, and Tracy and Gerry are sitting there. And Tracy's consoling Gerry. And Tracy's just emotional, almost in tears. And he sees me come in. And he stood up, he said, "Billy, Billy." And he grabs me, he's very excited. "Billy, today you are the best in the world." And why I said it, I don't know, but it just came from deep inside. I said, "No, Coach, today I was the second best in the world." He looked at, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "The best in the world ran with a sprained ankle."
Can't wait for race number 48 this Saturday in Central Park, New York. And it's cool that last Sunday, just literally 4 days ago, we were in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and here we are in Central Park. So we're headed over to the New York Roadrunners Club to pick up my number. Here we go, Ted Corbett 15K Classic. It'd be so great to be on the starting line in Pleasanton without having to make up time. We had a really good run this morning. We ran the course. There's some challenging points. In the first mile, about half of it is uphill, about half is downhill. I have to make sure that I definitely don't get discouraged when I go out and see that first mile split. But then the next part of the course, most of it seems to be downhill. Again, there are some challenging hills. I can see why people say that it's a challenging course, but at the same time, it's a great course. Can't wait for race number 48 this Saturday, Central Park, New York.
We're honored to have you choose our race, especially our Ted Corbett race, because we run in honor of Ted all year round, but it's fun to really celebrate him today.
We also want to talk about our opportunities here that you can get back.
Okay, guys. Okay, Mike.
Lead vehicle, are you ready? Ready. On your mark.
You got this, bud. Kick it in, kick it in, kick it in. Last stretch. Get up on your toes. Get up on your toes. Kick it, kick it.
Last 40 seconds. I'm going into the double 39 seconds down, or something like this.
I've been running for over 35 years. I started running when I was 27. Going back when I was 23, 24, I was a very shy girl. After I started running, 3 to 4 years later, I came out of myself. It gave me a lot of self-confidence in myself. And I would never be able to do what I'm doing right now, just talking to you. It's up to me to get out of bed in the morning. It's up to me to go out and run. And now I have a commitment. If I say to friends, I'm going to meet you, then I know I need to honor that commitment. So they have really helped me, and I hope I help them too.
And the next thing we know, we're talking about running a 10K and a 5K. And at that point, the idea was 2 races in a day. And I could just feel the excitement in my blood as we're talking about, wow, running needs something new. And it was from that we developed the idea that has become the double road race.
Oh my gosh, the day is here. And I'm nervous. For some reason, maybe I'm also nervous because this is also our first double. And we have like 1,400 people. But I have 33 seconds to make up. It's just so great to have so many friends here. The day is here. I'm going to do it.
Oh man, it's raining bad.
The double road race is not an easy event. It's a 15K race consisting of 2 legs. Competitors first run a 10K, take a break, and then run a 5K about an hour later. Race position is determined on the basis of combined times.
Hit it faster.
Okay, so comes down to the 5K. I just didn't have it.
The double road race is an event Bob developed even as he was engaged in his 50 race challenge. The Pleasanton double would be his 49th race of the year. He had to run under 6:55 per mile to bring his average pace under 7 minutes for the year.
Running? What you're thinking about running these days?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I was just telling Michael, a month ago I didn't like it, and I started running like a full 30 minutes, and I hit that runner's high.
Oh wow! So you got kind of past that jogging stage, and now into the running stage, and now this is your first race.
My very first race.
And how did you like that part of it?
It was amazing. I had no idea this many people were going to show up. It was so packed here.
Bob was now a mere 36 seconds in total off his 7-minute per mile goal. Could he do it?
You know, I was publishing Runner's World since I was 17 years old, and it was just my life. And after selling the magazine, things just changed. It was something that I created from nothing, and it became one of the major magazines published in the United States. After selling Runner's World, I mean, I improved as a runner, so there is a positive part of that, but at the time it was very traumatic, very traumatic.
That final thing where he's doing his last run, where the Foothill Fun Runs used to be, and this was the turnaround for the 5 mile. This was kind of the last hurrah on the old course, so I think it was pretty appropriate.
I was trudging down the hill. There was Bill Dunn right ahead of me. And I said, gosh, it was all coming together. The entire year was right there. I had it in my hands. And I kept charging and charging. I got to the finish like 12:16 for 2 miles. My best performance per mile of the year. I did it. I got under 7 minutes per mile for the entire year. It's important to set a goal that you know you can reach, but put it out there a bit, and then just go for it. But not talk about something. Do it. Start it. Right now, whatever the goal may be. Maybe your goal is that you want to run a marathon. Maybe your goal is that you want to run a half marathon at a particular time. Maybe your goal is to run across a state. Maybe your goal is to run 50 races, or whatever. Set a goal and pick a time when you're going to start. And no matter what, start on that date, no matter what. And then go for it.
There will always be another challenge. If you're a runner, tomorrow means another run. After the successful completion of his 50-race challenge, Bob and his son Michael began training for that next challenge, the Boston Marathon.